Good evening. Welcome to Mixing It Up with Veritas Alta and NetX. My name is Daniel Pilgrim, Director of Infrastructure Solutions at NetX. Our presenter tonight is Patrick LaPorte, Senior Director of Veritas Product Marketing. NetX Information Systems was founded in 1997. We've been servicing customers in the areas of data protection, compliance, and security as a Veritas Platinum partner. Our offerings include deployment, support, optimization and tuning, architecture design for disaster and business continuity, capacity planning, and training. We will ask, due to the time constraints, please post your questions in the chat of this session, and we will answer them during the presentation or as follow-up. At this time, I would like to turn it over to our presenter, Patrick LaPorte. Pat?
All right. Thanks, Dan, and hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. Dan, one of the, recently we announced Veritas Alta, and one of the most common questions I get from our customers is, what is it? What is Veritas Alta? And just to cut straight to the chase for your audience today, Veritas Alta is all about helping you deal with your three biggest challenges: cloud, cyber resiliency, and controlling costs. And so the way that we're able to determine that these are your three biggest challenges, and hopefully those of you out there can relate to this, is that, certainly we're talking with a lot of you guys firsthand, but at the same time, about 12 months ago, we commissioned a survey, some research, and we wanted to get an idea of what our customers were feeling as we emerged out of the pandemic. And we found some really interesting data, and hopefully this kind of lines up with generally what you're seeing as well. One of the things that was really interesting was that we found that the majority of our customers had at least 3 different cloud service providers that they were working with. At the same time, they were virtually all of them were using cloud service provider type tools. And so we found that really interesting because just before, or just as we were going into the pandemic, we found that a lot of our customers, about 94%, had a multi-cloud strategy, but yet they were only on a single cloud. But they were also saying that about 80% of them were accelerating that strategy because of the pandemic. So seeing this data come out as we're emerging out of the pandemic kind of makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, we found some additional interesting information. And that is that 58% of IT leaders have no idea all the data that they have, where it is, what applications are deployed, and so forth. They're dealing with data sprawl and a lot of technical debt. And if you think about it, this makes good sense because during the pandemic, everybody accelerated their move to the cloud, and they kind of relaxed a lot of their processes and standardization routines in the interest of time and serving the business and keeping it up and running. So now businesses are starting to realize, hey, wait a minute, I need to get a better idea of where stuff is, and is it adequately protected? At the same time, cyber, which has been a challenge all through the pandemic and continues to be a challenge, I'm sure everybody can relate, we're finding that almost 90% of our customers have already had successful attacks on their cloud data. And then lastly, is all about costs and reducing complexity, because as everybody's moved to these multiple clouds, you've got different technologies, different workloads, different processes, different tools that you're using. That creates a ton of complexity, and that also increases your costs. So these are kind of the biggest challenges that we're seeing, both out of the study as well as our own firsthand experience in working with our customers. And so that's really why we created Veritas Alta. Veritas Alta is the most comprehensive data management platform for the cloud, and it includes a portfolio of products for protection, data protection, application and data resiliency, as well as information governance and compliance. And the whole idea of Veritas Alta is to give you a portfolio of solutions that allow you to regain control of all your clouds and all your data and all your applications so that you can protect it, you can reduce your costs, you can reduce your vulnerabilities for cyber, you can illuminate your information and mitigate risks and recover from situations more quickly. And so today, what I thought we'd do in the interest of time is to hone in on that data protection category at Veritas Alta. Because to be honest with you, that's where the bulk of the pain seems to be today. Application resiliency is very important. Being able to recover quickly, very important. And so is governance. But really, everybody, this is kind of like the front line for everything. Now, I mentioned that virtually all of our customers in our study are using the cloud service provider tools. And these tools, these are decent tools. They allow you to tick the box to say, yes, I am protecting this cloud workload. And they do provide some level of data protection and the ability to recover data. But they're not anywhere near as good of a solution as you can get with Veritas NetBackup, which is also part of the Veritas Alta family. Now, the way I like to think about things is these tools are kind of like your standard basic electric vehicle. It can get you from point A to point B. It does it efficiently. It does it quietly. It's not going to go fast, and maybe it doesn't have a lot of range, and maybe it only has an AM radio. But it can get you from point A to point B, provide you that basic transportation. That's what these cloud service provider tools can do. They can do basic data protection. But what you really want, what you really need is something that you can then has a lot of range, like a Tesla Model S or something, and it can have a lot of range, get you really far distances before you have to recharge, has a phenomenal stereo, great navigation, comfortable seats with warmers and massagers. That's the kind of analogy between the CSP provided tools and Veritas NetBackup. Now, a lot of times what you might think of when you're thinking of these tools versus NetBackup, and a common thing that I hear is that these tools are generally free and easy to deploy. With NetBackup, I'd argue, and as I'm going to show you in a couple cases, NetBackup, the total cost of ownership you can see is much, much less than you would expect, and in many cases may even be less than that free version that you're using. More importantly, NetBackup has a lot of those key features, such as AI-powered anomaly detection, the ability to compress and dedupe and store data in a much more efficient way, and it has all these intelligent automation to help streamline operations. And so let me drill in a little bit more on how our Alta products and NetBackup can help your customers address cost as well as cyber resiliency. The first is around cost. Now, NetBackup is powered by cloud scale technology, and cloud scale technology is the latest evolution of our NetBackup architecture. Most importantly, though, it is an elastic, containerized, service-oriented architecture. So what does that mean in terms of costs? Well, if you think about a traditional product that you deploy in the cloud, you have to provision compute resources and memory and operating systems and storage and all that kind of stuff. You have to pre-provision all that just to run the application. And all those pre-provisioned resources cost money, whether you're using them or not, whether the application's running or just sitting idle. With our elastic architecture, what we can do is you can deploy NetBackup, and then as a backup application or backup job starts to run and needs additional compute resources, we will automatically provision those resources, spawn them out, process the job, run the backup job, and then when it's complete, we let those resources go away. That's a classic modern cloud native type architecture. The beauty from a cost standpoint is you only pay for those resources when you're using them. If the product, if you're in between backup jobs, nothing is running, then you don't need those resources. You're not being charged for those resources. So that's one way that we're finding that NetBackup can operate way more efficiently. In fact, if you compare on the left side, that's kind of like the traditional version of NetBackup running in the cloud compared to NetBackup powered by cloud scale technology. We are saving our customers about 40% in cloud resource costs. So that's a demonstration of the cost savings that you can realize. Another big area of cost savings that you can realize with Veritas, and in this case, Alta Recovery Vault, is storage. Now, a lot of those cloud provider tools are snapshot based. So they'll take a snapshot of your data, of your production data, and they'll store it somewhere, typically on primary or tier 1 type storage, which can be pretty expensive. Now, to recover a file, you have to recover that snapshot to a location, be able to sift through the data, find the file, and then make a copy of it. All that storage costs additional money. And so when I say these tools are sort of free, this is one of the areas where you can pay a significant penalty. Now, with Recovery Vault, we have the ability to cut your storage costs up to 90% compared to those tools. And the way that we do that is by taking that snapshot that the tool uses, say, for example, Azure Backup. We take that snapshot, we convert it to a backup image, we compress it, and then we dedupe it, and then we move it off in an automated way to super low-cost storage, like an archive tier. If you want to do a recovery, it's as simple. You find the file using the administrator console, and you select that file, and it's automatically restored. Really fast, really efficient. But you're saving a tremendous amount in storage costs compared to those CSP tools. So that's so those are the two ways that we can save you money in terms of how you protect your workloads in the cloud. Elastic architecture, so auto scaling of compute resources, as well as storage costs. But now let's move to probably the biggest pain point that all of our customers are feeling, and that's around cyber resiliency. Back in 2021, which I know it's been a while, I read a study from SonicWall where they found that cyber attacks were occurring at 19 times per second. And I thought that was a typo. In fact, a lot of people I've seen use that stat say 19 attacks per 19 attacks, 19 an attack every 19 seconds. Instead, in actuality, it's 19 times per second. And that was in 2021, so I'm sure it's gotten a lot worse since then. Cyber is definitely a major challenge. So what we're able to do is we're not providing cybersecurity of your whole environment. What we're able to do is provide cyber resiliency. In the event that you are attacked and a successful attack occurs, we're going to enable you to recover quickly. Now, in order to do that, we have to do a lot of things. We have to protect the data. We've got to detect any sort of potential attack, and then we've got to give you the ability to recover. So on the protect side, NetBackup is the most powerful data protection solution out there. We can protect virtually any workload, and we can allow you to recover it virtually to anywhere. So if you think about any sort of time you need to recover data, it's usually a pretty critical time. You need to do it quickly, and you need to get your business app back up and running. With NetBackup, we have the ability to allow you to do that in a much more flexible way than you could with any other solution. On the protection side, just about any workload out there, NetBackup can protect. Over 800 different applications, we have the ability to protect those. In terms of storing data, if you have a storage target, chances are we support it. Over 1,400 different storage targets, so tremendous amount of flexibility. And with those storage targets, we can include things like storage immutability, so that when that data lands there, it can't be changed. We can do things like encryption or RBAC, role-based access controls and so forth, to ensure that that data that gets protected is secured and can be recoverable. And when it comes to recovering data, we have lots of different mechanisms, some of which I'm going to cover here in a minute, that allow you to recover at scale and do it very quickly. For example, we have the ability with a virtualization or Kubernetes environments, we have the ability to protect the data and its metadata. And if you need to restore that data to another location, we give you that ability. So for example, let's say you're protecting data in an Amazon availability zone, and you need and that availability zone goes down. Well, if that's going to impact your business, using NetBackup and the way we are protecting data, you can throw that to another environment, maybe another availability zone, or maybe even a different cloud provider. Because we're protecting not only the data itself, but also the metadata, we can stand that back up in a much quicker way. So your business is down for the least amount of time. That's the kind of flexibility that we're talking about with Veritas NetBackup. Now, from a detection standpoint, and this is the part that I think is the coolest. Now, with Veritas NetBackup, we have 3 key ways to be able to detect any sort of issue that might be going on in your environment. The first is we can provide AI-powered anomaly detection. And this capability allows us to analyze the data as it's streaming in over a backup using artificial intelligence and identify anomalies. Now, an anomaly might not be malware. It might just be an anomaly. But what we can do is we can identify that anomaly and then alert the administrator that something weird is happening here. You might want to take a look at it. In addition to that, we can, once the data has landed, we can scan that data. We can scan it for malware using a number of different tools. We include an embedded tool from Avira, which is the engine that's used for Norton malware scanners. We can also use Microsoft Defender or even Symantec and other tools in the future. But the beauty here is that as you're protecting your data, as that data is stored in a backup location, we can run malware scanners on it to ensure that that data is secure and not contaminated in any way. In addition to that, we offer a lot of automation through this process. The first level of automation is you could tick a box that says, if you detect an anomaly, initiate an automated malware scan immediately, or maybe just pause the backup. Either way, if you're, depending on your level of security and comfort, you can tick the right boxes to automate this process. An anomaly is detected, scan it for malware. Anomaly is detected, stop everything, hold on, pause for backups. And we can take that similar approach when we recover data. In the event that you want to recover data, as I said, you want to get it back as quickly as possible, but you also want to get it back with confidence that you're not just putting back bad data or contaminated data and you're right back to square one. So what we can do is we can allow you to recover that data and only recover the last known good copy. So if, for example, in your data is something bad that we have detected, you can tell NetBackup, restore all the data but that data, or go back to another backup version until you get to a completely good copy, and then bring all that back. Either way, we're giving you options on how to get back up and running as quickly as possible. So this is one of the most powerful capabilities that I think is included in the solution in helping you to address cyber challenges.
Yep. And this does provide a methodology to provide a clean restore, but does not replace the corporate requirements for malware scanning in your infrastructure.
That's a great point, Dan, because as we've talked with a lot of our customers, and clearly we're providing some tools here, some capability, some of them have said, wait a minute, what if I want to use my own tool, which is totally fine, totally there. What we've also found interesting was that some of our customers have said, I have this tool that I'm using for my corporate scanner, but I'm going to use your embedded tool mostly out of convenience. Once we explain the engine that's being used, it's Avira, it's basically Norton's tool, then they feel a lot more comfortable with it. And they choose to use it mostly because it's completely embedded and already integrated. So it's kind of up to choice, but I found that interesting that sometimes they use both.
Great.
Now, in terms of recovery, one last thing on protect or detection. You can't protect what you can't see, and you can't detect what you can't see. And one of the tools that we provide is a product called IT Analytics. And there's a cool feature in this product called a ransomware scorecard. And IT Analytics has the ability to look across your entire data estate, across all your clouds, on premises. It can look at everything, and it can say where you are overprotecting or underprotecting or not protecting at all. And it can, based on that, it can give you this scorecard on how things are looking. Are you solid? Are you not? if you go back to some of the data that we got from that survey, where senior IT leaders were saying, I have no visibility into where everything is and whether it's protected. This is a fantastic tool to help them get a sense of everything that they've got and what level of protection it has. And it's a great tool that you can use. And in addition, it's totally customizable. So it asks a number of questions, go off and do that scan and then give you the results. You can also add your own questions, like go and look at this or go look for this kind of stuff, and then it'll add that to the scorecard. So it's totally customizable, and you can run it, whenever you want and get an idea of where you stand from a ransomware vulnerability standpoint.
In IT analytics, even though it's from Veritas, which is known for backups, they also have modules that do network and storage and VMware protection. So there are capabilities to get a single pane of glass within one product.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Okay, now the most important part is recover. And we offer a lot of, as I've kind of mentioned already, a lot of different options for recovery. But one of the most important and a fairly new feature that we're providing is the ability, a capability we call isolated recovery environment. And as I've said, when you want to recover data, you want to do it quickly, and then you want to know that it is clean, that the data that you're bringing back is not contaminated. And so isolated recovery environment is a great way to help get you that confidence that what you're restoring is clean. Now, the way that we do that is on the left side, you've got your typical production environment, protecting all these different workloads. Everything's going fine. Workloads, can be your cloud workloads. It can be SaaS applications, anything that NetBackup has the ability to protect. And you're storing that data using the standard, 3-2-1 kind of process. In addition to that, the isolated recovery environment provides an air-gapped type solution where we can ensure that the data that's in the isolated recovery environment remains clean and is not contaminated. Now, the way that we do that, in the olden days, you might use tape or something, and you have basically inherited an air gap. What we can do in this world of this day and age of connected infrastructure is we can create this isolated recovery environment where the only way the data gets in there, excuse me, is by pulling the data from the production environment. And so by doing that, we eliminate the possibility of anybody listening in on those ports and maybe riding along on the data as it goes in through the firewall. And so we're creating a bit of a virtual air gap there. In addition, when we pull that data over, we're storing it on immutable storage, whether it's in the cloud or on premises, in the cloud with Recovery Vault or your own immutable storage. Just a number of different options that we can store it on to ensure that that data doesn't get contaminated. And on top of all of that, we also can provide malware scanning of that data. So not only are we protecting it, securing it, keeping it from getting contaminated, but we can also continuously, or not continuously, but on a regular basis, scan that data for malware. When you need to do a recovery, you simply do the recovery from the isolated recovery environment, and you can do it. You can recover your environment much faster and with greater confidence that what you're bringing back is clean. So that's a very quick overview of Veritas Alta and NetBackup, which is part of the Veritas Alta portfolio. In terms of those three main challenges that a lot of our customers are seeing, and I'm guessing most likely you are as well, when we're addressing data sprawl and technical debt, think about IT analytics gives you that holistic view of everything across all your clouds and on your on-prem. The Veritas NetBackup console can give you that visibility into all the different workloads you're protecting. We have a product that's coming out next month, end of next month. This is kind of a bit of news. It's called Veritas Alta View, and it's going to be available at the end of March. And that product allows you, it's a SaaS-based solution that allows you to see all your backup domains that you're protecting, and be able to manage across those domains at a much higher level. From a cyber standpoint, cyber resiliency standpoint, get total control of all your data, whether it's immutable storage, AI-powered anomaly detection, malware scanning, RBAC kind of tools, secure encrypted communications, zero trust infrastructure. All those things are included in the Veritas Alta portfolio to ensure that the data you're protecting is secure and can be recovered with confidence. And then lastly, on the cost side, as I mentioned, we can reduce your compute costs by 40%, depending on your situation, your storage costs compared to CSP tools by up to 90%. And there's just lots of other ways, softer costs to help as you're deploying and managing and protecting these workloads in the cloud. So that's kind of a quick summary of Veritas Alta and NetBackup. And Dan, I'll turn it back over to you, and we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, Patrick, thank you very much. Great presentation. If there are any questions, please feel free to post them into the chat window, and we will try to respond to them.
Hey, Dan, while we're waiting, maybe I'll just throw this out there while people are starting to think about their questions, because it's a question that I get on a regular basis. It's related to Recovery Vault. Recovery Vault is our storage as a service solution. And one of the questions I get frequently is, are there ingress and egress costs with Recovery Vault, especially if I'm protecting on-prem workloads? And from an ingress standpoint, no, zero costs. Bring the data to the cloud, and you're all good to go. On the egress side, which is the area that most people get worried about, generally there is not an egress cost. We use kind of a fair use kind of policy, and we have a really high threshold. And so oftentimes a lot of our customers can do restores that are reasonable and not incur any egress costs whatsoever. There is a bit of a threshold. I actually don't, I'm just trying to remember what it is, but we do have a bit of a threshold that if you exceed that threshold, then yes, there is an egress cost. But most of our customers, when they're doing standard restores, don't incur such a cost.
So that's definitely a value add to compare to your CSP protection, which you said they're the basic EV car analogy earlier to the Teslas and higher end models. But we did get a question in here. When you move data to longer, lower cost storage, how quickly can it be data be archived in that way and recalled?
Yeah, it's almost as fast as primary storage. I mean, if you think about putting data on lower cost storage, it's going to be lower performing storage. But if you're doing, and so moving data from that point to wherever you need to restore to may take longer than it would from, say, a tier 1 type storage. But if you're doing just standard restores, a few files here and there, you're probably not even going to feel much of a difference because in those cases you're doing single file or groups of file restores, which can happen very fast. You'll start to feel it if you're doing like a full system recovery, but most cases when you're doing a full system recovery, you might not be doing it from that archive tier. You might have a nearer term tier, a higher tier where you're storing like the most recent copy of your data. So it's up to you, but in general, it's pretty fast.
And also, as you get into your deeper archives tiers, that window is going to be of recovery is going to become longer and longer just because of the SLAs to retrieve that data.
Yeah. But that's by design, right? It's the SLA is longer, but you're also saving on storage costs.
Yeah, it's cost benefit.
Yeah.
So another question is, how comfortable are you handling video storage for surveillance applications?
Any workload, we have the ability to protect it. So, depending on how the data is stored, we have the ability to protect it. Now, in all cases, we will use our compression and dedupe technology We will still apply all of our automation to manage it, in a cost-efficient way. So, I'm not aware of any specific things that would cause a hang-up. So we should be able to protect it and store it efficiently, as efficient as possible. Obviously, video files
efficiently as that data class will allow you to store it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
MP4s are already high compressed, just like a zip file.
And they're going to be fairly unique, so there's not going to be a lot of dedupe in that case. But yeah.
Any of the questions that were answered this evening, we will go ahead and send a follow-up meeting with a link to get the presentation, as well as the PowerPoint presentation in PDF. Also, we'll be sending out a attachment of the services that NetX provides on the Veritas platform, including the Alta Suite, which we discussed today, as well as all the other Veritas products from on-prem data protection reporting, data compliance, and disaster recovery and business continuity. Again, on behalf of NetX and Veritas, we'd like to thank you very much for attending and appreciate your time.